You know what I wanted to just share with you today is I'm a Christian. So when I talk about my testimony, I'm talking about my personal story, not what's given from the witness stand. You see, we Christians, particularly we church-going folk, like to talk about what God has done in our lives. We like telling others about where the Lord has brought us from, how He's changed us, and what He's currently doing in our lives. We like to testify. But as I say that, it seems to me that more Christians than not are pretty silent about what God has done to transform them. To be honest, it's been a long, long time since I've been to a testimony service where there's no preaching, just people telling their stories, their testimonies. But maybe it's because so often what we get the most, what gets the most press, so to speak, are the testimonies that, wow the audience, the great testimonies of how God delivered a horrible sinner and turned him into a saint. Yeah, I know that's what salvation is, but work with me for a moment. What people really want to hear are the salacious details of debauchery and crime, the drugs and alcohol, the millions blown on a life of sin, sort of like Kanye West or something. And then how God miraculously saved them from all the excitement. You don't draw a crowd with a boring testimony like, I was saved as a small child and lived in a relatively God-honoring life, the last 40 years. So why would the average Christian want to stand up in front of people and watch them yawn? For the most part, a lot of people who are born again by faith in Jesus Christ think their story isn't worth telling. That's why I want to share for the very first time my pre-salvation testimony, to encourage the average believer who's never been a murderer, a drug dealer, a dope addict, a wife beater, a famous musician, or a politician. I've written before about my life after God saved my soul, but I've never really talked about what it was like before I gave my heart to Jesus. I didn't want to give the devil too much credit or make my past life look attractive to those who might be tempted, by the depravity that I was bound by. Honestly, some people talk about their lives before Christ like salvation was only something they resigned to. It's like, I had everything money could buy: women, drugs, fast cars, airplanes, houses on the beach, and a modeling contract. But then I got saved, and now I go to church. But not me. I was a true sinner, lost and on my way to hell, and I am glad Jesus saved me. Before I got saved, I was an immature, unpredictable, maladjusted mess. For a few years, I was in such a world of my own that, nobody could understand me. My vocabulary was horrible, worse than a sailor's, as a matter of fact. My language was so bad, I'd even make up words to express the pain inside. For at least a year, I drank all the time. I rarely ate a bite of food. I never cared about my own well-being, my own hygiene, but lived every day without any thought of life or death. I took every risk, broke every rule, was in trouble with authority on a regular basis, sometimes daily. Listen, before Jesus saved me, I was a self-centered, self-serving, and entitled jerk. I felt everything should be done for me, that I shouldn't have to do anything for myself. For a couple of years, I didn't even try. More than a few times, believe it or not, I'd wake up in my own urine and feces. I was like the homeless in San Francisco. I'd defecate anywhere and anytime I wanted. Once, while attending a party at my parents' house, I literally walked into the middle of the living room where the church people were sitting, and my mother, and urinated into an ashtray on the coffee table. Needless to say, my mother was mortified. I took advantage of everyone who loved me, especially my mother. Fortunately, I had good, godly parents who loved me through those unredeemed, unrepentant years, even though it seemed like every penny they earned was meant to keep me alive. And that is why I could never thank God enough for what He did when He saved me. September 26th, 1973, when I was only 6 years old. God spared the world from what I could have become. Now, what were you thinking when I was saying all that? You were thinking all that happened while I was an adult, didn't you? But the fact of the matter is, guys, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, are we not all born into sin? Are we not all sinners until saved by grace? There's not a one of us, young or old, that deserve heaven based on our own righteousness. We don't have to live a long life full of sin to deserve hell. Folks, we deserve hell now. And I deserved hell as a 6-year-old. Because in reality, my sin, your sin, the sinner down the road's sin was no greater nor less than mine. I still needed Jesus, or I was lost. A great testimony does not have to be one that's full of debauchery. A great testimony is one where somebody admits they needed Jesus and they don't regret giving Him their life. If you've accepted Jesus as your Savior, there's a story. There was a moment, there was a time, there was a day when you realized you were lost and you needed a Savior. That's a story you need to tell. And it doesn't matter what you did beforehand to get to that point. Just give Jesus the praise. That's what the world needs to hear. Thank you for watching.